senior life here. So, okay.
There we go.
Okay.
All right, you're on.
What is the name of this group? Are you a climate group generally, or what's your focus?
This is Sustainability Soul Search, and we meet once a month.
Perfect.
And this is sort of campus wide, so all three buildings are involved.
Okay.
And so Jean and Mayim are part of a small group that meets with the administration along with me to talk about environmental and other sustainability issues. But this is a group that is resident focused for education. And Sid has something to add.
Now, in after 2000s, I was involved with the environmental group in Brookline. It was led by our current representative, or one of the leaders, was our state representative.
Tommy Vitolo. So that could have actually been Climate Action Brookline then.
It was.
Oh, it was. So you were an early member of Climate Action Brookline. That's fantastic. And Mayim Barron, who's at one of your other sites right now, waving right now, is actually on the board right now of Climate Action Brookline. And she's very active in climate issues. So basically, and what I'm told you wanted me to speak about were two things, kind of Climate Action Brookline and climate things in Brookline generally. Right, and then in particular to talk about Brookline green electricity, right? Is that correct? Yeah, and so my first question, even before I get started, is for your own electricity usage, are each of you folks billed individually, or is it the complex? Individually. Okay, that's good. Okay. So what I'll do at the end is I'll start talking about, if you want to, first of all, I'll tell you why you should sign up for Brookline Green Electricity if you're not on it already. And then I'll do some talking about how you can get on it, how you can sign up. Okay. So Climate Action Brookline was founded in the year 2000. And since that time, it's been several of the founding members are still on the board. And Sid, you were involved back then, I guess. And basically, we've had a whole bunch of different projects in that time. And Climate Action Brookline is one of several environmental groups in town. And I'd like to invite everybody. Climate Action Brookline, we have our meetings the second Monday of each month at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And at this point, they're all Zoom meetings. And in particular, our June meeting is Monday, June 13th at 5 p.m. And what it's going to be, we're inviting every single environmental group in town that we can think of. We've already got Mothers Out Front Brookline coming, and Elders Climate Action Brookline. I invited Mayim, and either Mayim or another ECA, Elders Climate Action person will be there, and a whole bunch of other climate people. It turns out, everybody in Brookline, it turns out there are an awful lot of people working on the climate issue in Brookline, but nobody knows what anybody else is doing. I mean, we really need to start communicating an awful lot better so that we're working together more, and so that if one person is working on a certain issue, we don't have to kind of reinvent the wheel, and also so that we're not working at cross purposes and things like that. So this is kind of a show and tell of all the groups in town. And so if anybody wants to work on a certain part of the climate problem, and you find there's a group over there that's already working on it, fine, join them. That's fantastic. And that's the whole idea. And again, that meeting is going to be Monday, June 13th. At 5 p.m. and it'll be on Zoom. And I'll send Rabbi Jim the Zoom link for that, and he can forward that on to all you folks if you're interested. So, and believe me, we need everybody to help on the climate issue. Basically, Climate Action Brookline. Again, we've done many projects since the year 2000, including encouraging people to put solar panels on their roofs. We've had lots of climate fairs, stuff like that. We also have led the town to write several climate action plans, they're called. And I'm going to say a lot more about that in just a second. And more recently, we were very involved in the town of Brookline hiring a full-time sustainability director. Okay. We're now on our second director, and that person's been on the job about a year now. And we're working very closely with that person. And here's why. Because basically, in 2017, Brookline signed the Paris Climate Agreement, okay? And the reason we did was we had heard a certain person who was, in 2017, what was he doing? Running for president, or he was all, I think he had,
He was already president.
he was already president. And Brookline, we signed on to the Paris Climate Agreement shortly before the then president pulled the country out of the Paris Climate Agreement. We're very glad we did that because in 2018, the very next year, Paris asked that everybody who signed on write a what's called a climate action plan. And Brookline came up with a pretty good one in 2018. And the reason I mention it is Paris wants everybody to update their climate action plans every 5 years. Well, 5 years from 2018 is 2023, next year, okay? And we are making a huge deal about this. And as a matter of fact, the new town sustainability director has applied for a pretty substantial grant to help us write this plan next year. And we have to get very busy on the climate issue in a way that we haven't yet. Basically, does anybody know Rich Rosen, who lives in Brookline? Lives right near Coolidge Corner. Anyway, he's a senior, and in his working life, he was a theoretical physicist. He's now retired. And in that role, he was a contributor to what's called the IPCC. Okay, IPCC, or the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. It is the UN-based organization that periodically issues reports of how serious the climate issue is, okay? We were very lucky having Rich as a Brookline resident, as a contributor. He's one of the people who helped advise on the plan. And he told us that the latest report, you may have noticed, it came out in the news about a month or two ago, okay? It says that the world and Brookline, to reach our 2040 climate goals, Brookline and the world needs to reduce its greenhouse gases by 6% each year for each one of the next 19 years. That's a huge task. Okay, what that means basically, I don't know if you've heard the word decarbonize. We have to decarbonize everything we can in our economy. And there's some controversy to it apparently, but which basically means we have to really start cutting down on our fossil fuel usage for everything we do. Okay, and how to do that? First, what I want to do is I'd like to show you this book that just came out within the last year or so. It's Regeneration by Paul Hawken. Regeneration, Ending the Climate Crisis in One Generation, okay? And it's just got a ton of different ideas we can do in terms of how we raise our crops, how we transport ourselves, how we build our buildings, the way we treat wetlands, et cetera, et cetera. It's a great book. It's a very inspiring book, and I recommend it to everybody. So, basically in Brookline, remember I said we have to reduce our greenhouse gases by 6% a year. Even though Climate Action Brookline has been around for, well, 21 years, 22 years now, Brookline really has not made any headway, honestly, about addressing the climate issue in real quantitative terms, okay? There's one major exception, and that is Brookline Green Electricity, which we're going to talk about in just a minute. But to put it in perspective, there are three major priority areas of our lives, really, that we need to think about if we want to get serious about addressing the climate crisis. The first one is transportation, okay? Transportation in Massachusetts is responsible for 42% of the greenhouse gases generated in Massachusetts, okay? The next one is buildings, how we heat our buildings, how we do our cooking, how we cool our buildings in the summertime, et cetera, okay? And the next one is electricity generation. Between transportation, buildings, and generating electricity, that accounts for about 97% of greenhouse gases in Massachusetts. That means almost all of the greenhouse gases, okay? So not all of them, but almost all. That means that any serious effort we make to address the climate crisis has to have very detailed, plans in those three areas. And again, they're transportation, buildings, and electricity generation, okay? And I'm going to talk about BGE now, but I also brought a little show and tell item here. Maybe it's got a seat on it. It's fantastic. After we talk about BGE, we could talk about that. It's a little electric gizmo. What it is for you remote folks, it's a electric scooter with a seat on it. And it's my new toy. It's a fantastic thing, and it's perfect for seniors.
Good for organ donors.
Good for organ donors. Okay.
That's what they call motorcycle riders.
Oh, okay, I see.
So,
Got it.
why not?
Yeah, so a lot to talk about, but I'll tell you, let's talk about Brookline green electricity first, okay? The scooters, by the way, I know are controversial amongst seniors, and that's actually one reason I brought it. What?
Your helmet.
Yeah, the helmet's a good idea. Okay. Brookline Green Electricity is a program that Brookline started in the year 2017. It's still going today. And basically, in that time, there are two things that it does mainly. First of all, it's a group buying program, so that customers, usually what happens is when you're dealing with the electric company, it's just you in your one little house there or one little apartment, you know, teeny little you versus the huge electricity company, right? The utility, right? You don't have a lot of negotiating power with that. Okay, with Brookline Green Electricity, it's basically the town of Brookline that is basically representing every electrical account, every household in Brookline, and has more muscle in negotiating better prices. Okay, and the second thing it does is that since Brookline has such a high emphasis on dealing with the climate crisis, Brookline, in the last 5 years that BGA has been around, it's actually done a lot to reduce our greenhouse gases. The program so far, since 2017, it has, let's see, it's led to the increase in renewable generation of electricity, equivalent to putting solar panels on 7,000 roofs, okay, or building 1,014 land-based wind turbines, okay? So just in dealing with the climate issue, Brookline Green Electricity has been a great success, okay? Basically, let's see, group purchasing power. It's a program that's vetted by the town of Brookline. And I bet you in your mail, you get these envelopes from, you know, this solar company and that solar company, right? And they promise all kinds of fantastic things. And some of those companies are okay, but some of them are real shyster operations, okay? And you never know which one, what's what, okay? The beauty of Brookline Green Electricity, or I'm going to call it BGE, that's what we call it all the time, is that it has been vetted very carefully by the town, okay? Matter of fact, they're having a meeting on BGE and today, a very important meeting today. So again, group purchasing power, which reduces your prices. Number two, vetted by the town of Brookline to help you to be sure you've got an honest program and a fair program. Number three, the BGE program lets you determine what percentage of your electricity is going to be generated by renewable sources, which basically means solar energy, wind energy, or hydropower, okay, as opposed to the conventional generation of electricity, which is either fossil fuels or nuclear, okay? There are several tiers, and you can determine what percentage is going to be renewable. Why does that matter? Because basically, when the program began, the renewables were honestly more expensive, or I should say, when renewables began, they were more expensive than the conventional fossil fuel and nuclear. But that's changing rapidly, okay? And I'll talk about that more in just a second. And finally, the BGE program, you can join it or leave the program at any time without any kind of penalty. And a lot of times, the programs that again, they send you those envelopes, you know, Joe Schmo's solar company, they say they're fantastic. But what they don't tell you, except in the small print, is that if you sign up for a contract for a given period of time, and if you want to leave that contract early, there's a huge penalty, okay? You avoid that completely with Brookline Green Electricity, okay? It's one of the most important things that we kind of are sure is part of the program. Okay. And by the way, I've been part of it's been called the BGE working team. I've been part of that for about 4 years now to be sure that each contract as we sign it is the most, the highest percentage of renewable energy, number one, and number two, the most kind of consumer friendly that we can get as possible at that time. And then finally, the most, a huge benefit, I think, of Brookline Green Electricity is that we insist that the renewable electricity be generated through sources that are called Massachusetts Class 1 Renewable Energy Certificates, or we say Mass Class 1 RECs, okay? An easy way for somebody to get renewables now is to just buy electricity generated in wind power, huge wind generators in the Midwest or Texas, okay? But that, honestly, there's a ton of that already available. And one thing we wanted the BGE program to do for sure was really lead to sponsoring the construction of more renewable energy generation as close to Brookline as we can, okay? And Massachusetts Class 1 RECs, or Massachusetts Class 1 Renewable Energy Certificates, let us do that, okay? And it's the RECs, the Renewable Energy Certificates, that mean, that's why, that's how the BGE program has increased our use of renewables, equivalent to putting, as I said a few minutes ago, to putting solar panels on 7,000 roofs or building 1,000 land-based wind turbines, okay? So it's been a great success. It's really an excellent program, okay? Let's see, and the current contract, which goes through the end of this year, the default of renewable electricity in the mix is 30%. So if you were to join today, just and accept the default rate, then 30% of your electricity would be renewable, okay? Let's see, and in the past 5 years, is people always say, oh, aren't renewables more expensive? Well, interestingly enough, now that BGE has been around for 5 years, on average, this gets a little complicated, but basically each BGE contract is for several years. We've had the first contract for 3 years, the second contract for 3 years, and then starting next year, I think we're going to go for a 2-year contract, okay? And once they sign a contract, it's a set rate, okay? But you folks know, you may know from your Eversource bills that Eversource rates change every 6 months, right? Every January one, there's a winter rate, and every July, there's a summer rate, okay? And so what happens is in a given 3-year period, BGE will be a certain rate and Eversource might be a little higher, but then 6 months later, it'll be a little lower, and then 6 months later, a little higher. So the actual history is that in the past 5 years that BG's been around, on average, the average customer saves $3.58 a month over Eversource Basic, okay? So, and I think I mentioned the 2023 contract, which doesn't start till January. It's being negotiated right now. And everybody is kind of unsure exactly what's going to happen because, honestly, because of Putin's, invading Ukraine, and is Europe going to use Russian natural gas or is it not? Or if Europe can't get natural gas from Russia, then the United States may have to, contribute a fair amount, and that would raise our rates, et cetera, et cetera. So it gets complicated. So, so right now, if you guys are okay, I'd like to talk about how, if you're interested in BGE, how you would sign up. Does that sound all right? Mm-hmm. Okay. So,
Quick question.
Yeah.
How do we know that we've already signed up for it?
Okay, very good question. Let me hand this out, and then I'll tell you that. This is a door hanger that tells you all about it.
I was signed up with Green in my previous condo, and I still have the same account number with Eversource. Am I still signed up?
You probably are, and it's in a second. I'll show you how to know for sure.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, I got two questions so far already on how do you know if you're on it right now. You know, if I'd been thinking ahead, I would have had Jim ask you folks to all bring your Eversource bill, okay? But here's how you tell when you get home, okay? Is that basically your bill comes from Eversource if you're on Eversource providing your electricity or you're on BGE, okay? Eversource does the coordination of it, you know, so, and the billing of it, okay? And if you're on BGE, okay, look at your Eversource bill and write down here in black ink, if it says Town of Brookline, that's how you know you're on BGE, okay? Yeah. And we would like it to say in big letters, you know, but the utility companies, they're not crazy about programs like BGE because it really complicates their lives. So they've only given us a little bit of you know, space to kind of announce it. Yeah, Sid.
I am automatically paying my electric bill through ETP through Eversource. Would I have to do anything if I switch to?
Well, like I say, the first thing to do is look at your bill. Do you still get a paper bill from Eversource?
No.
I bet you they send you an email though.
Yeah.
Okay. You know, I haven't seen what they sent an email, but I'm hoping.
Just the amount of money primarily.
Oh, that's all. It
Yeah,
doesn't
that's all I
have.
get. Your bill is da 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 da. You would have to go online and look at the bill in detail.
Oh, and open up your account and you probably need a password and all that, right?
Yes.
Have you done that? Have you set that up? It's
Well, I
complicated.
did it at 66 Atherton Road. I'm now living here.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know, whatever password you gave it when you were there
Yeah.
might still work. You should
It had
give
the
it.
same,
So here's
the
a-
same account number.
Yeah, it's probably the same, but there was a question from Naomi here
Okay.
about Direct Energy Town of Brookline with a Tulsa, Oklahoma address.
Yes.
Is that?
Yes, that's a longer version of what I just said. Mine just says, I'm going to read the whole thing. It says your electric supplier is Direct Energy, Town of Brookline, PO Box 180, Tulsa, Oklahoma, and then some phone numbers and stuff. Okay, and in the very bottom line it says billing for Town of Brookline. Okay, that's because I'm on BGE. Okay, and it won't say any of that if you're not on BGE. So that's the way to know. Okay. Yeah, sure. And then if you're not on BGE, basically the card that I just gave you, if you look at the very bottom of the front or the back, first of all, there's an email, a website that to sign up, brooklinegreen.com. Okay. And then also you can call this 800 number. And I called it just to double check this morning and it's still active. Okay, it's still good. Okay. So, and that's how you do it. So now the other thing you could do, and again, this is complicated enough just to be sure you're on, but you can also, as you sign up, you can sign up for different tiers of electricity. Like restate that. Different tiers of renewable electricity. Okay. And the tiers, if I remember right, I'm on the 100% tier, which is actually the most expensive one. There's also 60% renewable electricity, 30% renewable electricity, and then I guess what they probably call BGE Basic, which is a very, very low percentage of renewable electricity. And, you know, again, the 100% is the most expensive. We believe in, my wife and I, we super believe in renewables and worried about the climate crisis, so we've gone for that. And it does cost a little bit extra each month. I'm going to guess it costs us about $8 extra each month for our two-family home. So, and then the price goes down from there. So,
Any other questions about this?
Yeah, what makes something more expensive?
well, you know, that changes year to year. Okay. When I started working on the BGE issue, okay, I think I said it was about 6 years ago, something like that. At that point, renewable electricity sources were fairly new, okay? Whereas fossil fuels had been generating electricity for, since the 1880s or whatever, okay? And then nuclear power has been generating electricity since what, the 1950s, 1960s, okay? And there's something called an economy of scale, okay? Which means that if you generate a lot of electricity using fossil fuels for many years, and you've built a lot of plants, you really know what you're doing, your technology is really, well developed, you get your costs down, okay? So for many years, fossil fuels were a pretty cheap way comparatively of generating electricity, okay? And then nuclear, the same thing happened, originally very expensive and then got cheaper, okay? But now what's happened is that we have had, solar panels for several decades now, okay? And wind generators for 20 years, I don't know, 15, 20 years. And then also hydropower, okay? And which is water power, electricity. And as those things have gone to scale, which means more and more of them are constructed, okay? Then the cost per unit of electricity goes down, okay? And we've had a number of times lately when on a given day or whatever, the cost of electricity generated by a solar panel is cheaper than electricity generated by burning fossil fuels, and that's going to happen more and more, okay? So the renewable sources of electricity are going to get cheaper and cheaper and cheaper every single year. And that's a fantastic thing for dealing with the climate change issue.
Hey, again, there's two parts to your bill. There's the cost of the electricity, and then there's the transmission cost, wheeling, or whatever they call it.
Yeah,
How does
generation and distribution.
Okay, how does this affect the distribution price?
I don't think it affects the distribution, half of it at all.
All right.
I know this is getting a complicated question, and it'd be simpler. I have my bill here, and I wish I'd thought ahead and asked Jim to have you bring all your bills. So, if you want, Jim, at some point I could come back and have everybody bring the bills, and we could talk about this in more detail. Yeah.
Well, I mean,
At a future
it
meeting.
depends on whether people, if there's interest, I'm happy to do that, yeah.
Okay.
How do you
Okay.
tell what percentage you're at?
Okay, you're getting complicated as well.
Sorry.
Basically, yeah, and I'll tell you why. Yeah, I wish it weren't so complicated. The reason I can tell is, okay, I'm looking at the back of my bill. You don't by any faint chance have your bill present, do you?
Yeah,
Oh, okay, you may be the only person in the whole group that does, except me. Sorry about that. Yeah, again. If you look where it says total, on the back of the bill, where it says total charges for electricity,
yeah.
okay, and you see it says generation service charge.
It says supply and delivery.
Let's see. Okay. Yeah, how to tell which side. Go to the side that on the left side, it has monthly kilowatt usage. There's a chart there with several months.
Yeah,
Okay, then go just to the right of that.
yeah.
And you see in the blue, it says total charges for electricity,
Uh-huh.
supplier, direct energy town of Brookline. Right?
Yeah.
And then it gives you a meter number. Below that.
Not really, but okay.
Okay, and then does it say generation service charge?
You could hold it up to the camera, Naomi, and we could have a look at it.
Yeah, that's a
Do you think that, do we have to pay it?
Unless.
Oh, you might have to take away your background for long enough to.
Oh, hell. All right.
I know it gets complicated for folks who don't have bills present, so I'll make this one very quick.
Did you hear what I said?
Yeah, why, just forget it. I'm sorry I brought it up. I
That's
will
okay.
Figure it out somehow.
Yeah,
I'll tell you what, Jim can give you my email address, and I'll and I can explain it to you one-on-one. So, or like I said, if this group wants, either I or I can find some folks who even know more about this, who could come back and have all of you bring your bills, and we can talk about it in great detail. Sid?
So being green is one part of production of electricity, the other part is using the electricity. And in this building, they have put in double glazed windows to try to reduce the amount of energy. The only problem is they have metal frames.
That leak around the edges.
When it's cold in the winter, it sucks out the heat.
Yeah.
And that's a problem, and there should be some way to ameliorate that problem.
Yeah, for folks who are at the other sites, Sid is pointing out that this building here has very good double paned windows. That's the good thing, but the framing is metal of the windows, and so the metal part of the windows just leaks heat like crazy
Yes.
in the cold
All of the
weather.
other bulbs in here are LEDs.
Yeah, and this building has, again, for the folks on the other side, this building has LED lights, and that's an excellent thing.
And they also go off and they're activated by motion.
Yep, and the lights are motion activated, so they go off automatically when nobody's in a room.
The
So,
other thing I recommended was the dual use toilet flushes, but that's gonna be a cost down the road.
yeah, dual use toilets, yeah. A lot of these things.
That we have air conditioners which could be replaced with
Air source heat pumps, right? Yeah.
window, but there'll be the window side heat pumps. And that would be reduce the amount of energy that could be using.
Yeah.
Because it's much more efficient than the ordinary heat pumps that we use.
Yeah, and are you talking with the, the building managers?
I mentioned it to Jim. I didn't know that they were available yet. The window type.
Well, there's all kinds of technologies that are becoming available, and like things like air source heat pumps, and they're getting better and better every year. For example, it used to be that air source heat pumps would work pretty well, except when we get super cold winter days, and they weren't so good on that. But now they've come up with even beefier air source heat pumps that really can keep it warm on the very coldest days.
So I thought of as having insulation put around the window frames to reduce the amount of heat loss. Maybe something like plastic double board. I don't know how that works.
Fantastic idea. Jim Sid is suggesting insulation on the metal frames of the window frames.
You can get them taped.
You can get the.
That's a thought. That's a thought.
Yep.
Hey,
And
I
Naomi-
just wanna,
Naomi, oh, go ahead.
no, go ahead, Naomi, and I'll go after
Yeah,
you.
Naomi had a question about Brookline trying to eliminate fossil fuels in new construction, but the state said that wasn't
Well,
going
that's
to.
up for debate again, and I think it's gonna depend on who gets elected to be the new AG too, so you might want to go to the AG candidates forum coming up the end of the month and see, because that's probably how that's gonna be decided. I just want to say that, as part of the HSL sustainability effort, at least the new proposed construction for the 108 site, that's going to be to much higher standards than anything we have in CCB so far. So, that will be better. And I don't know if people there will have their electricity as part of their overall bill like we do, but they're going to get a good system. It'll be the first one of the CCB campus that'll be an up-to-date, efficient, environmentally friendly HVAC system.
And Maya, is it a single building building management people who deal with all of the Hebrew Senior Life sites, or is it a separate one for each complex?
It's
This
one.
is the CCB complex, and
We have-
James Brown is the operations manager
Right.
here.
Yeah, the three buildings in Brookline are managed by a single team.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
So once
Hi,
my
Annette.
activists really get kind of working with that person, they can make improvements in all three buildings. Yeah. So, yeah.
Jim is the one.
We're
Sorry?
not going to get much improvement in these three buildings, but at least the new building will be better.
The older buildings are difficult to retrofit from. There's a lot, the construction is very, it's 50 plus years old. So.
Yeah.
112 was retrofitted as well as they could, given the technology of the time.
Right. Right.
It's always best to kind of do the right thing, when you're building new, it's harder to retrofit an existing building.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, look what happened at 112, we retrofitted with a plan from 2016 and ended up with not the system we want to have. But the new construction will be. I have faith.
So Naomi, elaborate on what you just wrote, something about the undermining possibilities of low.
Something just happened in terms of the way existing utilities have something to do with the bidding for new alternative energy projects. And everybody seemed to say that this would prevent, it's something like there's a minimum bid that you can't go below. And I
Yeah.
did not understand it, and I'm hoping I can articulate it clearly enough to get an
I
answer.
don't know if we should get into that here.
Okay,
That's not really
yeah,
the
forget
purpose
it.
of
I'm
this
talking too
meeting.
much.
I mean, John may know something about it if he does and can give a quick answer, but that's not what we're here for.
Yeah, and honestly, when you're getting into electricity regulations and laws and yada, 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 they get so complicated and so technical, both in a scientific sense and in a legal sense, that your head can begin to spin. And I think we're approaching that a little bit. And I don't think we really need to, honestly, to be I guess I'd say a responsible customer in this way. Remember, basically what you folks want to do, what everybody wants to do is, within the budget you have, I'm going to assume you all want to do the best you can according to the environment, right? Yeah. And that's the kind of the bottom line. So, yeah, question.
I keep getting messages from Mass Save. I buy LED bulbs cheaper there. Are there any programs they're doing now that we should think about?
Well, Mass Save, it's what
Utilities.
I think those
okay.
are all for single family residences and don't really apply to us, do they?
I got the bulbs. They sent me LED bulbs
They send you LED bulbs.
about a year ago, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. What Mass Save is everybody by Massachusetts state law for quite a while now. I'm going to say probably since the Patrick administration. I think that's when it started. Is that there's a teeny little surcharge on your bill, and what that does, it goes into a fund that is supposed to pay for, energy efficiency retrofits on buildings and things like that. So the Mass Save people, they'll come through and they'll give you LED bulbs to replace your old incandescent bulbs. A year or so ago, a Mass Save crew came through again at my two-family house, a big old Victorian, and they pumped in all kinds of insulation in the walls. It was just fantastic. We noticed a huge the whole house in the wintertime feels much more airtight and much more comfortable, much less chilly in the wintertime. And also our heating bills, our natural gas bill has gone down significantly on that too. And now Mayim is saying that she thinks Mass Save is mainly for single family homes, and I don't have details on that. I think Mayim might be right. Mayim, your hand is raised?
Oh, well, they did come through and do the buildings and do the changeovers to LED bulbs and stuff. So,
Okay.
if you're a new resident and don't have that, I'm not sure who you talk to at HSL, but you could probably get that. But I'm thinking, John, we've got just a few minutes. We're past the town meeting election, which people would have all been very concerned about, I think. But now that we do have a new town meeting and it's meeting in a month or so, I know Climate Action Brookline's been involved with the warrant articles that'll be up, and people here might like to know something about what some of those are. Not that we can vote on them, but they will be voted on by the town. And I know Climate Action Brookline recently heard about some of those and decided which ones to endorse. Was that something you were planning to talk about?
I happen to have the list right here.
All right,
So
then.
I was prepared in case it came up. Basically, for each of the last several years, Climate Action Brookline has had meetings where the petitioners of different warrant articles have come before us to make their case. And Climate Action Brookline decides if it's going to endorse this article or that. And let's see, let's see. Climate Action Brookline, warrant article 17, which for the first time would establish town zoning requirements for large buildings to have electric vehicle ready parking spaces. What that means is it's going to require, for large buildings, it's going to require that there be a certain number of EV charging stations in the parking areas of those complexes. Okay. And it's just to kind of be fair to people, it's going to apply to newly constructed buildings and buildings that are undergoing major renovations. So
This is where you run up against this, it's not required yet thing. I
Yeah.
have argued hard that we've got to have EV charging spaces in that new construction going up between the two towers, but it's not yet law in Brookline. So, and then if town meeting passes it, it won't be required for a year or two. So HSL will get away with building that new building with no parking places for residents. We need to be able to use EVs and shared cars, but they're not yet required to put it in.
well, Maya, you could try to convince the building managers or the board or whoever determines these things for the complex to.
You think I haven't? I talked about it every zoning and approval hearing they had.
Okay, there you go. There you go. Okay, warrant article 18, Climate Action Brookline is endorsing. It is all, by the way, that last one was a zoning change, so it requires a 2/3 vote, which is hard to get at town meeting. And that's why it was very important that Climate Action Brookline endorsed that one. Warrant article 18, a zoning bylaw to require large complexes to have bicycle parking, okay, for folks who can ride bicycles or scooters like this one, things like that. And it's not a major deal, as it turns out, because basically these things are so much, bikes and scooters are so much smaller than cars, that what they were talking about is the kind of the largest buildings in Brookline that, okay, they would be required to devote a space about the size of a laundry room to bike parking and scooter parking. Okay, so it's not a huge, thing that's being asked. Let's see. What was the other?
People also bring these things up to their rooms.
Yeah, when it's convenient. Yeah, it's. But to bring your bike or your scooter, if it's been a rainy day and the roads are all muddy, you don't always want to do that. So, and when you think about it, if a complex already provides car parking for residents, well, isn't it, bike, the smaller vehicles for shorter trips. And let me point this out. I think this is very, very important. In greater Boston, 1/2 of the car trips are 3 miles or less. Okay. These are car trips for people to go, do your errands or do your shopping or whatever. Okay. And do your supermarket trip, whatever. And 3 miles or less. Okay. And one of the things we will talk about when we work on the climate action plan next year is how much sense does it make for you yourself weigh 100 pounds, 120, 150, 180 pounds, whatever. Does it really make sense for you to get into a car? The smallest sedan is 2 tons, 4,000 pounds. Okay. When you're driving your car, the fuel that you're using, the main thing it's moving is the car. And then it decides to be nice and just let you kind of ride along, you're a little bit of weight, right? So, and you could say that makes sense for a long trip when you're driving a long distance on the Mass Pike or something, right? You also want the protection of a good steel box around you because of the other fast moving cars then. But if it's a real short trip, like my trip coming here, I live in North Brookline. I just zipped right up on this scooter, right? And this scooter, look how small it is. It weighs 41 pounds, a little heavy to pick up, and there are lighter ones. And the amount of electricity, the amount of fuel it took me to get here from North Brookline, to recharge the thing, I just plug it into a wall plug, right? It recharges overnight. And I should figure it out, but I'm going to guess it probably took me about 25 cents or 50 cents of electricity to get here. Right? And how much is gas right now? Yeah, see? Right?
Yeah, but let's say you go to Star Market and buy something. Where do you put it on that?
Well, this scooter, if I had a basket on it, and they have baskets I can attach to behind the seat post there, then Yeah, we're working on this. I've been working on the issue of scooters in town, and as you guys may remember, there was a scooter share pilot program in 2019 in Brookline, where they did a lot of things wrong, you know? And one of the main things they did wrong is they made, it was all the scooters, you had to stand up on them. Well, seniors aren't gonna wanna do that, right? But hey, I could sit down on this thing, the whole ride here. It was really, and it was really low down, it was very safe, you know, I felt very secure. It worked out very well. So if we start bringing in scooters where you, A, can sit on them, okay? And B, have a little basket attached, right? Very different story. Very different story. I think it'd be a perfect solution for seniors to, again, do your short trips. And it's a good climate solution as well. How are we doing?
Good. I think we are at time. So
Okay.
I want to get back to the question of June 13th.
Oh, thank you.
Just remind everyone that is June 13th is a meeting. And there was a question from Naomi about that, about whether Third Act and Dayenu are going to be part of that, because Dayenu is, both Third Act and Dayenu are groups that are appropriate for members of this community to join. Third Act is for people over 60, and they have a focus on voter turnout as well as climate change. And Dayenu is specifically climate, and there are Dayenu clusters around. So
Yeah, absolutely. Now I have
Yeah,
heard
that
of.
would be great to invite Dayenu. I went to their Passover action, and yeah, I think for this community, that is somebody we really should hear from.
I've heard of Third Act, but if anybody knows a Brookline contact for Third Act, let me know. I just am not aware of them, and I'd like
I'm
to
not aware of
invite.
it either. Yeah.
And that other group, Dayenu,
Dayenu.
I've never heard of them, but
Yeah.
absolutely would like to invite them. Yeah, no question
It's
about it.
part of the Stop the Fossil Fuel Pipeline sort of action, you know?
Yeah.
Okay.
Dayenu is targeting the 7 largest banks that still invest in fossil fuel infrastructure.
Okay.
But it is part of, what do they call it? There's Jewish climate action, but there's something, it's definitely a Jewish related group.
Yeah, let's talk, Maya, and between the two of us, we can probably come up with some names.
You're
Yeah.
online, please.
And let me know. Yeah, yeah.
Go ahead, Sid, and then Richard.
The Third Act is online, you can find out about them there.
Say it
Third
again.
Act is online. You
Okay.
can get them there, and I met somebody on May 1st. I was walking with the unions from Chelsea to East Boston, and one of the gentlemen on the line told me about that and how they're trying to get the banks to defund the oil company.
Fantastic.
And
Folks, the other side, Sid is telling us that the Third Act, we can get info online about them, number one, and that Third Act is also working on the defunding, banks defunding from fossil fuel companies.
Yes. Yes.
Right.
the way they're doing it is they say that if they do not do it, then all of the people who are on Third Act are going to remove their bank account from them,
Yep.
including their credit cards, and go to Wilkins Bank.
Yeah, Sid is saying that folks, there's this whole campaign, Third Act and other organizations that at a certain point, I guess prearranged point, that if a given bank doesn't divest itself from the fossil fuel investment, folks are being asked to withdraw their money from that bank and go to another bank that is more responsible this way.
That's
The
right.
idea is an en masse withdrawal so that it
En
makes
masse
an
withdrawal.
impact rather
So
than a
they're-
day-to-day
yeah.
one or two.
Exactly.
So what they're asking for, how they're organizing it, and they're still in the organizational phase. They're not a lot of feet on the ground yet, but what they will be asking for is for people to pledge their action to move first your credit card. You can easily change your credit card and get a different credit card. And then do you move your banking account, move your investments
Right.
out of those
Great.
organizations.
So
So
Richard,
then
do you want to
it'll
say
be a
something or you just
day
want to
where
stop?
Everybody does it.
Back on track and not have it monopolized by one person.
Yeah.
That's what I would like.
Richard, what track would you like to get on?
Wherever we were before these people from the other building started jumping into all this extraneous stuff.
Well, the topic is Brookliners, responding to the climate crisis. So I thought it was all good.
Yeah, I think this is definitely, I asked people to get back to that question of June 13th. There's going to be a meeting of Brookline
Yes.
Climate Action.
Yes.
And the question was, these other groups, are there local chapters of these groups that are going to be involved in that June 13th meeting? I think the answer is we don't know, but.
Well, that's up to me. I'm the
but
one
also
who's making the invitation.
Great.
Again, on Monday, June 13th at 5 PM, it'll be a Zoom meeting. Climate Action Brookline is the coordinator of the meeting, and we're inviting all of the climate groups and activists that we know of in Brookline, so we can kind of everybody can learn what everybody else is doing, so we can all start working together better.
Great. All right, well, thank you so much, John.
Thank you.
Really
Fantastic.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
And we're going to switch gears really quickly. So anyone, Julia was nice enough to come to be able to say goodbye to folks. Thanks, everybody on Zoom. Julia's here to say goodbye. Harriet was the person who especially wanted to, but she had to leave. But just wanted to give everyone a chance who had a chance to work with Julia over the course of the year to say hi and to wish her luck, and for her to wish us luck in the future. So.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. John, would you just put your contact information?
Yeah.
It might be too late, actually, maybe.
No problem.
Does Mayim have it?
Well, Mayim definitely has.
Oh, yeah, Mayim. So Mayim, you have John's information,
Oh,
right?
I do, but for other people to be able to.
Yeah, I think everyone else is on their way, but you can put it in for,
I'll put it in anyway. Why not?
Carol, yeah.
I'll tell Stuart if he wants it. All right, thank you for coming, John. Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
It's too late.
Too late. Oh,
Too
well.
late. All right.
Well, I'm sending it in.
There we go.
To everybody.
Everyone who's right, exactly. Send it into the ether.